Hello, my name is Al Lucas. Hello, everybody. I am an author of 12 books, starting with High Stepping Off the Crack and ending with the rhetorical questions, the Socratic method. So, High Stepping Off the Crack is what we want to talk about today. It is an account of a character named Paul Undress, who goes in the day of 9/11 to the hospital and seeks shelter from crack addiction. He's not really well accepted at the hospital, obviously, but he is a vet and he wants attention. He's going to kill himself if he doesn't get it, or so he says. Actually, it's a ploy. He knows the system pretty well. He goes in, he talks to the screening psychiatrist, who is an Oriental, and raises all kinds of questions for him. And he doesn't know exactly what to do about that. He's asked questions like, who is the President of the United States? He says Norman Mailer. What does a rock collecting moss mean? It's a stone or something like that. It's very funny to read, and it's a humorous rendition. So after the psychiatrist, then he admits him into Ward 2B South on the second floor of the VA hospital, James Haley in Tampa, Florida, on the day of 9/11. The towers are coming down. Security has been breached, or is uptight, really, at the hospital. Security's been breached in New York for sure. He goes up. He goes on to Ward 2B South. At that point in time, he's given a shot of Thorazine, and that's when the fun begins. Roll call is at midnight for him when he wakes up from the shot, and he has a seance at the day room of the lobby of the hospital, the day room of the Ward 2B South, and he sees Jesus and Mohammed, Buddha, and Confucius, 4 sages, seated at the table. He is alone in the day room at 12 o'clock midnight, as he should be. And he's invited to sit concomitant with the gurus and save the world by doing so. But he rejects the proposal and runs out of the room to the bathroom, where the smokers are furtively smoking their cigarettes. And comes back to his own room, where the beds are 8 in the room, and he hears the snoring, the baying of the gaping mouths of the snoring vets, and he talks to God. He reads to God the opening of his manuscript, and that is one of the themes of the book. He has a manuscript that is important to him, and he has trouble relating to people, but he doesn't have trouble reading his manuscript to them, and he does that sort of inappropriately, or in contrast to just dealing with the people themselves. He has to interpret his manuscript to them in an isolated manner. So he reads his manuscript to God, and this is the first manuscript. He talks about the dog that played a role in his life, his mother who hated his guts, his father who was an alcoholic, so forth and so on. And he comes to a conclusion with the Lord. He's tired at that point, and he goes to bed, and he masturbates. And the next day, he wakes up and there's a person in the room who has heard him masturbating and wants to have an affair with him. Well, he says, sure, count on it, and storms out of the room. He goes to the nurse at the day of the hospital. But anyway, back to God in the manuscript. The Lord talks to him, and there is a communion with his dialogue and the voices that he hears of God. So that's the beginning of the book. And then we have Frank Amici, his social worker. We have the screening, not the screening psychologist, Dr. Y, who we talked to, but Dr. Al, as in pain, Dr. Al, who he talks to on the ward, the chief psychiatrist of the ward. And the chief psychiatrist, he reads to the chief psychiatrist, he reads to Frank Amici, he reads to social, Rachel DeWitt, and he goes, and they conclude that he needs to be taken to Avon Park, a dual diagnosis center for his addiction from crack and alcohol. And before they accomplish that, he's allowed to go home. He goes home and has one last bout with the crack, which is portrayed in this, where he exchanges his car for a piece of dope, the car keys for some dope, and the cover of High Steppin' Off, the original, so High Steppin' Off the Crack. You can tell here, this book is more or less the prophet that he becomes in Morocco prior to going into the service, and represents his conception of himself as a prophet, whereas this is the dope transaction after he's gotten out of the military and he's in the VA hospital on the day of 9/11. Well, anyway, what happens next? He goes home, has one last bout, as I said, and uses his car as leverage because he doesn't have any more money. That was the reason he was in the hospital in the first place. And it doesn't work out for him. He doesn't get the car back, and the dope is used up in about 20 minutes. The crack is consumed in about 20 minutes. And so he types a little bit at home. The crack lasts about 20 minutes, but he types at home some continuation of his story, his transcript, his manuscript, and in doing so, that's revealed to the reader as he types. But he keeps typing. I guess I assume he finishes it in completion, because the rest of the narrative is he goes to a transition home because he has to wait a month before he can get it. An opening occurs at Avon Park, and he goes to a transition home called Safe Place here in Tampa because Rachel wants him out of the grasp of the drug dealers that surround him. And so he goes to Safe Place, and there he meets somebody that he met at the Ward 2B South, which I did not make mention of. And his roommate and he become friends, and his roommate is interested in Paul's manuscript and peruses it while they are at Safe Place. After several readings, he winds up blowing his brains out because of the nature of the manuscript. It's just too It's too, not necessarily mind-boggling, but I guess it was mind-boggling for him. And he blows his brains out. So Paul is transferred from the safe place after a few weeks and goes to Avon Park. At Avon Park, he doesn't particularly like it. He has Manfred, Mundane, an ex-pilot, a black man, and he reads to Manfred as well. He can't communicate in the room of the class that he's in because they're all black, and in Morocco, prior to going into the service, he was raped by a black man, and he started his manuscript at that particular time in the adobe of a small village, an adobe hut, an adobe room on the second floor of a small village in Diabet, south of Essaouira, south of Casablanca, and south of Tangiers. And while he made a name for himself there, becoming an adherent of Allah, that was then, and coming back to the States and having trouble acclimating to the concrete reality of America, he goes into the service to save himself, and it turns out it doesn't work out that way, and he becomes a disabled veteran, which enabled him to go into the hospital in the first place to seek attention. So that there we have that. But he's in Avon Park, and he's bumming cigarettes, which is against the policy. They don't let him have his top rolling papers or his tobacco because that's associative of pot usage and is unclean as far as AA goes, or as far as Avon Park goes, for that matter too. Not necessarily AA, but Avon Park. And he is dismissed from the facility because he's broken the rules 3 times as far as cigarettes go. And he comes home, and he comes back to his condo, the drug-infested hood, the condo where he's been living for years, and he gets clean. He goes to AA. It's been a long and inconvincing struggle for him until he finally decides to experiment and see if it'll work, because nothing else will do it. He doesn't have much choice. He doesn't have any friends. He needs to socialize. He needs to find a place for himself. And so he goes to the 301 house, and he doesn't like the riffraff at the 301 house, so he goes to South Tampa's Clubiana, more his style, more sophisticated perhaps, less banal, and he adopts to he becomes chairman of the AA meeting because the chairmanship format is lying on the table when he goes in. He picks it up and he directs the meeting, or to a certain extent. He is a trusted servant, as they say. So he gets clean, and that's the story of high stepping off the crack. High stepping. High step. Wait a minute. Hang on. Bear with me. This is high stepping, and this is high stepping. They're both good versions. This is the third person version. No, this is the first person version. This is the third person version. The reason I wrote it in the third person was I had lost the manuscript. I couldn't find it of the first person version, and I really didn't even realize I had it, and I published it as simply high stepping as the prophet from Morocco to the prophet of AA. But I didn't realize that the original version I had, which I discovered later after the publication, the self-publication, the first of High Step, the first. So I sent the second version to Line Press, and they published that as well. So I have two competing versions, but they both basically say the same thing with the same details. You know, when you tell a story with an autobiography or it's a pseudo-autobiography, not all the details are truthful. And when you tell a tale of an autobiography, the first person is much more amenable and appealing, I think, more intrinsically correct for the style, or whatever you want to call it. And the third person is makes it a little bit harder. It's more detached. It gives a different ambiance to the effect. So there you have it. I hope that you take these both one version. I recommend the first version, the High Steppin' Off the Crack first person version as my favorite, because I'm able to use italics in a way which is more inherent to my appreciation of the use of italics, such as the God talk and the communion with the four sages, and just emphasis of things like that. I believed in the telepathy in Morocco that went on at that particular time, and I believe in divine telepathy here in this country, which exists. I will say I almost believe in the Holy Spirit, for that matter. But as to the projection of thought, I feel like it's easier to do in Morocco, as far as that goes, than it is here in this country. But anyway, I hope you like the reading. I hope you enjoy the book, and I look forward to relating with you your comments, any insights. I feel like it's profound to a certain extent, in that the more innocent or people might appreciate the story, the lines the lines of logic that are conveyed, and the thoughts that are conveyed, basically. So thank you very much. Good luck. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Al Lucas. Bye-bye. Hello and bye-bye. Have a good one.